Well, welcome everyone who's joining us this evening um, for our first session on the emotion of anger. Um, we're looks like there's probably people still getting on the room, so I kind of hold off getting. Um, okay, here more people are showing up live, so that's good. So I like to start with anger for when I'm talking about emotions because anger is probably the most physical, the most basic in terms of uh, a bottom line issue that a lot of people have. I mean, there obviously a lot of people have issues with sadness and grief and pain and so on and so forth. But anger is a really tough one for just about everyone to deal with. And learning how to understand anger and use it constructively is a real foundational thing to developing overall emotional health and everything else. And I also like to start with anger because it is the one that took me the longest to figure out. Okay, I've talked about a little bit of my background and the that I've always been a person who believed in God and always wanted to do the right thing and that sort of thing. So you kind of growing up in that kind of a spiritual environment and believing in being a good Christian, following Jesus, you can easily get the idea that anger is just completely evil, that there is that you should never be angry, that being angry is like sinful or evil or something like that, and therefore I should never ever get angry. And also, it's very easy to adopt that viewpoint if you grow up with a parent, one or more parents, or caregivers who are very angry, controlling, and abusive in some ways. So you can see anger as something very evil because you've suffered as the victim of someone else's anger. And for me, that's kind of what happened to me. When I was younger, I remember I used to get mad at my brother and used to hit him and stuff like that. And then I read the New Testament and about turning the other cheek and going the extra mile. And I decided to try to put that into practice. I started practice like not losing my temper with my brother. And it really was good. I mean, I eventually learned not to blow up or hit my brother or, be like that, which is all good. But I also somewhere along the line got the idea that like getting angry in general was completely bad, that I should never get angry. And so I got really, really good at suppressing my anger. In fact, I got so good at suppressing my anger that I didn't actually believe that I ever got angry. And so even when I was angry about something, I could no longer correctly identify the fact that I was angry. Now, I knew that, in starting off with my emotional healing work, that being able to feel your feelings was important. All right. And so I, would encourage people who had been abused or hurt or whatever to get in touch with their anger. But it's just like, like I said, I didn't even really recognize that there was that much anger inside of me, except for one thing. And that was this. I kept attracting myself into relationships with angry, abusive people who would take advantage of me, people would try to be controlling with me, etc. And in many ways, I was a doormat for a lot of other people. And so I began to realize that in relationships, we attract people who are mirrors of ourselves. So the fact that I was continually being attracted to people who easily lost their temper and were angry and controlling meant that I wasn't dealing with anger. In other words, what I had come to realize as I did emotional healing work is that the people we're attracted to are basically expressing what we are judging inside of ourselves. And our judgment against them is really a projected judgment of our own inner nature. And therefore, I realized I had a problem with anger. In fact, had a girlfriend, and she says, you need to get angry. And I said, well, I do. At that point, I'd already started to try to get in touch with my anger. And I said, I do get angry. She says, no, you don't. You get frustrated. And you don't have any real power with this. And I got to thinking about this. Why was that the case? What were there times when I actually did get angry, and what did I get angry about? And I remembered a particular incident where I was with 3 of my young children, and some teenage punks were actually shooting bottle rockets at my kids. And I went over there, and I felt like I wanted to rip their heads off, And I thought, well, why was I so angry about someone doing something that threatened my children, and why am I never angry about somebody doing something to me? And as I thought about it, the answer that came back was, well, because I really love my children and I don't really love myself. So we want to stand up and protect what we love. And if we don't really love ourselves, then we don't want to stand up and protect ourselves. But at the same time, I had this dilemma, and I had approached it and started to at least intellectually understand it, that on this one side is the person who's angry and controlling and loses their temper and can be abusive and so on and forth. On the other side is the doormat, who never gets angry and who tries to appease the other person and please them and whatever. And I realized that both extremes were not correct. They weren't the answer, but how to get in touch with that anger, And so some of the exercises and things we'll talk about tonight and whatnot are actually designed to break through armor, because what happens when we've been holding on to emotions for a long period of time, we develop what we call emotional armor, which is muscle tension and breathing diaphragmatic inhibition that is actually like a dam. I explained this last week, holding that emotion in so that we don't even feel it or correctly identify it anymore. And I had learned from a body-centered psychologist, Alexander Lowen, some exercises he did to help people get in touch with anger. I had started to understand emotional process, and I started actually trying to do some of those exercises. And I don't actually remember when this happened, but I was trying to, in preparation for this, think about what was the time frame in which this happened, and I can't correctly pinpoint it right now, but I had a breakthrough. It's like I broke through my armor, and all this anger that I had been sitting on for all these years, thinking I was never angry, came boiling up to the surface. And I was, to put it bluntly, pissed. Really, really, really angry. I remember for about a 6-month period, this anger kept bubbling up inside of me. And I would be like, unfortunately, this time I was living by myself, so I didn't have any inhibitions in dealing with it, but I'd be taking a shower and all of a sudden this anger would come up and I would just start letting out a string of explicitive kinds of language that I'd never used in my life, just wanting to go, And the thing is here's the most interesting thing. There was some anger about other people, but not much. The thing I was the angriest about was, why did I put up with that? Why did I allow myself to be treated that way? What was wrong with me? I was really angry, and I didn't want to get close to anybody. I didn't want anybody around. I wanted to keep everybody away. I didn't want to get close to anybody. I knew I was not in a very good space. And as I've said many times, the irony of it is is that a lot of women I knew for years started being very flirtatious with me. And several of them, like 3 or 4 of them, said, wow, something about you has changed. And they showed this like sexual interest in me, which was really, really interesting. And the reason why I didn't respond to it was because I thought, right now I'm pissed off enough that I'd bite your head off as soon as whatever. So, I wouldn't be going into a relationship with you in a loving mood. I'd be using you. And the fact that you're attracted to me being in this energy means something is seriously wrong with you, because you're attracted to the energy of someone who is feeling very angry and not caring that much. And so I was wise enough to keep my distance till I kind of got through this. But when it all subsided, I realized that I'd come to a healthy place about anger. And I'd come to understand it. I'd come to understand what it was and why it was necessary. So I have slides that I posted, handouts that I posted for this, and they're on the class page. I also put them with the webinar thing. I am not going to go through the slides and talk about some of the negative effects of anger emotionally, physically, that sort of thing. You can read that yourself. You probably are aware of that. But what I do want to talk about is anger as a positive energy. So let's see if we can pull up the anger as a positive energy slide. And we explained that anger is essentially the emotion that we have that we want to get rid of something that's hurting us. Behind anger is hurt. And when something's happening that we don't like, that's causing us pain, that's making us suffer, we want it out of our life. And that's the purpose of anger. The purpose of anger is to give us the strength, the gumption, or whatever to do something to protect ourselves. There's nothing wrong with wanting to protect yourself. There's nothing wrong with wanting to protect other people either. I remember as I kind of made that breakthrough, there was this spiritual group here in St. George called Exploring Oneness. And I would go to that quite often. And also I would present there quite often, sometimes like three times a year, maybe 4 times a year. They'd enjoy having me speak. And one time I was at that group and I made this statement. I said, if I saw someone abusing a little child, sexually molesting a little child, and the only way I could stop them was to grab a 2x4 and hit them over the head, I'd clobber them. And I had all these people in there who went, ah, like, how could you? That's so unspiritual and blah, blah. And I'm like, are you kidding? It would be an extremely loving act. I'm protecting a child. I'm saving a child. In other words, there is a positive place for having the ability to use force or even violence to protect someone you love. And one of the people that you should be willing to protect is yourself. All right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to protect yourself. Now, a lot of our anger has nothing to do with anybody causing us any real harm, because all of us have dragons. And so remember that our inner belief systems and our past experiences create these problems inside that when some little thing happens that reminds us of that and we haven't dealt with it, it pulls up the anger from the past. And we apply that to the current situation in a way that's inappropriate. But there's nothing wrong with actually the pure emotion of anger in a situation that deserves it. Now, what I finally figured out, because here was the problem, all right? I've got people who are like angrily maybe attacking me, criticizing me, doing something to me that I don't like, okay? And I only saw 2 options, right? And those 2 options were, okay, I can either fight back and I can, fight them. And if it's a person you love, I mean, you're really reluctant like me. I don't want to injure that person. I don't want to cause them harm, but you feel like, that's one option. And the other option you feel is, or I can just sit and take it. All right. Just take it. Well, you know, neither one of those is really really good options. So I struggled to figure out, where's the balance point? Where's the balance point? Where's the balance point between losing your temper and fighting back and getting into a big argument and adding to the hurt and injury, or sitting back and quietly taking it all and letting the other person, abuse you and dump on you and so forth? Where's the balance point? And I discovered that the balance point was this, that I didn't need to control the other person. I didn't need to try to make them change, because the one thing of like blowing up and attacking is focused on trying to make them change, telling them they're wrong, they've got something wrong with them, they need to change it, they need to fix it, blah, blah. The other one is letting them tell me I have to change. And I realized that I had the right to say no, that to anything that didn't serve me, that anything that I really didn't want to do, anything that I didn't think was good for me, I had a perfect right to tell them no. I didn't have a right to try to make them change, but I had every right to control myself. And that's how I discovered for myself the concept of personal boundaries. Now, as often happens with me in the journey God has led me on, I call it top-down learning. I get this idea, and then I'm led to books and resources in psychology that back up what I just learned. And I learned, that I had discovered, the real understanding of how to have healthy anger, which is to understand there are things that are in my realm of control. My thoughts are my business. My feelings are my business. My choices in life are my business. They're none of your business. That's my responsibility, my area of control. Your thoughts, your emotions, your business, whatever, that's your business. That's not my business. And all of the issues around anger and all have to do with not having healthy boundaries, not having a clear differentiation of understanding what I'm in control of and taking responsibility for controlling it, and understanding what I'm not in control of and not trying to control what I don't have control over. You understand? In other words, when I find this sweet spot where I'm in control of myself, when I don't let other people control me, I don't let other people control me ever. All right? But I don't try to control them either. I find the middle ground. And at that point, anger dissipates into strength, into personal strength and personal integrity. And the ironic thing is the more you're in control of yourself, the less you feel the need to control others. So, and we talked about the energetic breathing of anger last time, but also this thing of wanting to strike out. So this is one of the keys to getting rid of the armor of anger. You can tell people who suppress their anger by the fact that they develop this tension up here. I'm just going to stop the slide for a second. Okay, so we can see this. Okay, right up here, because you cock your arm back to go, okay, but you cock it back, but you never release it. So all this muscle tension builds up here, and it rolls your shoulders forward and rolls your head forward into a pattern of submissiveness and squashes your internal organs. The result being that you get compressed breathing. You don't have room to breathe. You're more prone to grief and constriction in the heart and lungs. Your stomach tends to suck up against your diaphragm, creating hiatal hernia. You get all this tension in the neck and shoulders, which winds up with headaches, particularly migraines. And you start to develop this slumped over posture, which can lead eventually to being depressed. And so there's this whole pattern of the body that once you start seeing it, I can look out over a classroom of people when I'm talking about this and pick out, there's a person who is a pushover, there's a person who's a pushover, there's a person who's a pushover, there's a person who's a pushover. I can see it in their body posture, and I can see the people who know how to stand up for themselves. Okay, I can spot it. It's a physical condition. It's a physical thing in the body. And so when you do some of the exercises that we talk about in this presentation, and you break through the armor like I did, and you start to release that ability, what I found was this: when I released the ability of anger, I didn't want to control anybody except me. All I wanted was to be in charge of my own life. That's all. You can do whatever you want. And we'll talk about how that works tomorrow with the idea of personal boundaries. You can do whatever you want. It's none of my business. I just want to be in control of me. And it takes anger to be in control of yourself, because you have to have the will, the drive to say, I am worth protecting, and my right to be free and to be who I am and what I am and whatever. And you have no right to interfere with that. Stop it. Okay. And I know that, ironically, the thing that's really funny about this is that, I see like guys, who are really abusive with women and so forth and so on. And you see a lot of women are very attracted to them, just like a lot of women were attracted to me when I was in that same kind of state, working through my emotions. But it's not healthy, right? But I found that when you're willing to stand up and say, this is who I am, blah, blah, you don't have to be abusive, and it's still attractive, okay, to women to be a guy who has strong personal boundaries. But it's also, oddly enough, attractive to healthy men for a woman who has personal boundaries. A healthy man is attracted to a woman who has boundaries. An unhealthy man is attracted to a woman who has no boundaries. An unhealthy man, in terms of who wants to be controlling and abusive and blah, 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 and is angry, is attracted to a woman who's doormat. But a healthy man is attracted to a woman who has boundaries. So boundaries are one of the first things in terms of creating good social relationships. So basically, using these graphics here, you have the chart, the excess of anger, which is a suppression. Okay, a person who excessively expresses anger, who's angry, controlling, and whatever. Whenever you're excessively expressing one emotion, it means that you're suppressing other emotions. So the person who is the angry, abusive person is suppressing grief, suppressing their own pain, and suppressing their own fear. And that is what makes them express anger. A person who suppresses anger, however, will excessively express fear and sadness, which I label that as the discouraged, depressed area, which is the combination of the yellow energy and the blue energy of fear and grief mixed together. Okay. And this means that they have a hard time saying no. They don't feel like they're afraid to stand up for themselves. They let other people intimidate them, et cetera, et cetera. So healthy anger lets you say no to whatever does not serve your best interests or will cause you physical or emotional harm. And when you are expressing healthy anger, it is very differentiated. Now, rage is undifferentiated. When you fly into a rage, okay, like a person who has a lot of pent-up hurt and is expressing anger, something will make them angry, and it will trigger his anger, and they'll express that anger towards everyone around them. Whereas when you have healthy anger, it's towards a specific person, towards a specific action, both a specific person and a specific action. So in other words, you can identify what action it is that you don't like and who is doing that action. And it's specific. It's targeted to that specific thing. Okay? Someone stole something from you and you're angry about them stealing from you. That's healthy anger. And it allows you to do something to try to protect yourself. So unhealthy anger is expressed as aggression, which is being abusive, trying to control other people, as rage, flying off the handle and yelling and screaming and losing control, as frustration, feeling frustrated and, thwarted and blocked, but not really, blowing up or anything like that. Suppressed anger, one of the ways it will show up is resentment. You start to resent people. You this quiet, smoldering resentment. And of course, hatred is another unhealthy expression of anger. So here's the understanding that I started to come to of anger. Okay. Venting anger is, I'm going to win and you're going to lose. My needs and my feelings are more important than yours. So I'm going to force you to change. I'm going to threaten you. I'm going to do something to try to control and intimidate you into changing for my benefit, whether you like it or not. Now, every single one of us, I guarantee, has probably done that at least once in our life, if not many, many times, especially if you have kids, right? If you've ever blown up and got angry at your kids and threatened them with punishment or whatever for not doing what you wanted them to do, you were venting anger. Your needs, what you thought, were far more important than their needs and what they thought, and you laid into them. Okay? Suppressing anger is, you win, I lose. What you're wanting is more important than what I want, so I'm going to let you have your way. I'm going to let you control you. I'm going to back down. I'm going to whatever. The balance is, my needs are just as important as your needs. We both have the right to control our own lives. Therefore, okay, you have no right to force me to do something that I don't feel good about, but I have no right to force you to do something you don't feel good about. That's an inner understanding that starts to come out, but you can't enforce it if you're not in a relationship. So this brings to the two-choice dilemma, which is basically the cause of all arguments in relationships. Okay, we all want to be free. We don't like being controlled. The youngest child, the 2-year-old, does not want to be controlled. They want to be free. Everybody wants to be free. It's an innate human desire to be free, to make our own choices. Yet on the other hand, we want to be in relationships, and we want to have people understand us, and we want to have people love us, and we want to have people accept us. So we want people to approve of us. So there's a balance between these two. In other words, I'm willing to make some adjustments in order to get support and love and whatever from other people, but I don't want to be controlled in the process. It needs to be my choice that I'm choosing. You're not forcing me to. So what happens with this thing in arguments is that if I claim the first, I'm going to be free and I will do whatever I want, okay, then I have to completely give up the second. If I want the second, I have to completely give up the first. Okay? So the only solution to this is the philosophy of win-win. And I'm going to just skip over these. So if you have problems with anger, or someone has problems with anger, you need to make a list of things that trigger angry feelings inside of you, because those triggers, those anger buttons, are basically related to dragons, to unresolved emotional conflicts inside of you. They have nothing to do with anyone else. The things that make you angry and make you want to lose your temper or angry or hate people or resent people or whatever have nothing to do with anybody else. They all have to do with things that are going inside of you. And they're your buttons. And if you want people to stop pushing your buttons, you have to get rid of your buttons. If you have no buttons, there's nothing people can push. Okay, now, so let's get into an understanding also a little bit deeper of what's happening in anger. Always behind anger is hurt, and always behind anger is judgment. So there are two things going on when I'm angry and I'm losing my temper, and I'm is one, I'm hurt. Whatever that other person has done is causing me some kind of pain. I'm feeling betrayed, attacked, utilized. My freedom, my right to be me, my right to control my own possessions or my own property, is being trespassed on. Basically, it goes back to the whole idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence. If someone's threatening my life or health, that it's very hurt, and and the natural response is to be angry. If someone's trying to take away my liberty, that is going to make me angry. If someone is trying to thwart my pursuit of happiness by taking the property and the things I've worked to develop and have in my life for my own happiness, that's going to make me angry. To be vandalized, destroyed, whatever. That's naturally angry when our life, liberty, property are trespassed against. We always feel angry. But there's also the aspect of judgment, okay? Because I've also judged this person and said, they're wrong, they're evil, right? And because if I didn't, I could still feel hurt, okay, that somebody did that to me. But I wouldn't feel angry unless I also felt hurt and I judged them. Okay? That I decided that they were wrong. And I'm telling myself that they're wrong and I'm right. Okay? That's a really important distinction. So, as you develop in emotional healing, you're able to identify that a behavior is something that you don't like without judging the person who did it, without making the person bad. You're upset at the specific thing that was done, but you still love the person. When you do that, you're able to approach it with a different attitude. You can still have the strength to stand up for yourself, but you're not seeing wrongness or badness or evil in the other person, okay? So one of the things that will contribute to anger is narcissism, which is this idea that the world should exist for your convenience, okay? So, narcissism we exhibit when, someone cuts in front of us in traffic or whatever, and we just, you blah, 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 in other words, when anything, the actions of the other person get in our way and we're angry about that, we're always like judging these people as there's something wrong with them. But again, what's underneath that is hurt. Okay. So if, as I said, a person who is expressing excessive anger is basically suppressing their pain, their grief, and their fears. And that's what they need to get in touch with. They need to get in touch with what is the fear, what is the pain that's behind my anger, and deal with that. And that balances out their anger to make them able to stand up for themselves with whatever. So these are questions when you're angry to ask yourself. What needs to be protected? I'm angry. What do I need to protect? What was lost that I want restored? What's my hurt? What's my fear? What am I trying to control that I'm not in control of? What am I failing to control that I am in control of? So, Marshall Rosenberg in Nonviolent Communication says that basically anger is a misplaced desire for empathy. Actually, revenge. The desire for revenge, which is deeply rooted in anger, is a misplaced desire for empathy. What we're looking for, okay, let me explain this. Okay, somebody just did something to you and it hurt, right? I feel hurt. I feel hurt by the actions that the person did. I feel hurt by what they said, right? They said something and it was not nice. It was mean. And I feel totally unfair about what they said about it. All right. So I feel hurt. Now, the reason why I want to hurt them back, the reason why I'll get sucked into a fight and attack back and want to hurt them is because I want them to empathize with how I feel. Understand? I want them to understand the hurt they just caused me, right? I want empathy. I want compassion. That's what we want. This is why emotional healing is so powerful, is because we're creating an environment of empathy and compassion that lets people get in touch with this stuff and work through it, because people are aching inside for someone to be empathetic, to be compassionate. And we have a relationship with someone who we love and we're hoping love them, and now they've hurt us, and we want them to understand that we're hurt, right? So, because if I attack, okay, the only problem is if I attack, now they're hurting, and the hurt escalates because now they want to hurt me and they want me to understand how bad they, and two people are not empathizing or understanding each other at all. But on the other hand, like I said, if I sit there and I just quietly take it and I say nothing, right? And I say nothing, then I'm hurting, and I'm not letting them know that they're hurting me. And I start to resent it, and it builds up, and that doesn't work either. So you understand? So what Marshall Rosenberg in Nonviolent Communication says is that the other option, okay, to just stuffing how I feel or attacking the other person is to basically communicate my feelings without judgment. Understand? Say, ouch, ouch. You just said this and I feel hurt. And I feel angry about it. Okay? Because I don't feel like I deserve that. And this is not an easy place to get to. Like I said, if you're used to being a doormat, when you start saying this, well, they're going to go, well, so what? Who cares, right? Because the place they're coming from is they're with their own deep hurt and whatever. They can't appreciate what you're doing. And so learning how to get to the point where you can communicate nonviolently. And when I finally grasped this, and I'm again talking very personally here, I'd been dating someone for a little while, and they could be very angry and whatever. And I was trying to figure out how to stand up for myself in a loving way. I was using this relationship as a crucible to figure out this whole thing of how to deal with anger. And I remember when I finally just came to this place inside and I realized what I wanted, and I just said, this isn't working for me. And the other person got really, really defensive. And I said, I didn't say there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a wonderful person. But I made all kinds of compliments. I'm just saying, this isn't working for me. Blah, blah, blah. Went half an hour, just kept saying, there's nothing wrong with you. I love you, whatever. But this isn't working for me. And finally, she said, well, it isn't working for me either. You see, but there's this tendency because everybody is hurt and everybody's looking, and they've got their defenses up and they're ready to, protect themselves because we're used to having all these people attacking us and hurting us and doing us all this stuff. We've got all these defenses up. Learning how to get past that and communicate in different ways is really difficult. And nonviolent communication is a skill that I think everybody could learn. So this is the technique of nonviolent communication. Basically, it involves, and you can read the book. You can go to their website and learn more about this. This takes practice, but you've also got to get in touch with your feelings. Okay, you also got to be start learning to connect with your anger and realize you do have anger. You don't like it when people hurt you, and you have a right not to like it when people hurt you, because you have a right to try to, protect yourself and so forth. But the nonviolent communication is, first you make a statement of the observation of facts, then you make a statement of the feelings, then a statement of the needs behind the feelings, and then a request to have the needs fulfilled. Now that sounds quite simple, but let's start off with the fact that most of the time we do not deal with facts. Our brains immediately take the facts and run an analysis and interpretation on it and create our judgments and all of our interpretations on it, and then we impose that onto our statement of facts. So I read about this in another book, and it was a true story. A lady saw on the credit card statement, okay, a charge for a motel, and one of her friends had discovered that her husband was having an affair, because all of a sudden these motel charges started showing up on their credit cards because they were, meeting in a motel. So she became very concerned, is my husband having an affair, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, what the kind of natural human thing when you're not really understanding your own emotions and everything is your brain starts going to this place, my husband is having an affair, blah, blah, blah. The anger starts coming up. See, all the judgment starts coming into place. And I started making my interpretations and my judgments onto the situation. And it's very possible, that someone could handle that. The husband comes home and she says, "How dare you? How could you? Blah, 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 blah," and starts just into this tack and tirade and everything else like that, because they're immediately pouring all of that judgment and interpretation onto the facts. Fortunately, this woman was smarter than that. And she basically communicated in the style of nonviolent communication, even though the book that I read this in was not about the nonviolent communication. She actually followed these steps perfectly. She said, "Honey, I found this bill for a motel on the credit card, and I'm scared because my friend found out her husband was having an affair because of motel, and I'm scared you might be having an affair, and I'm really feeling hurt and scared because I need to know that you're faithful to me." This is nonviolent communication. He says, "I don't know what that charge is." Well, here's the interesting thing. Called up, found out that, this is the funny thing, they had gone on a date to a restaurant attached to that hotel, and that bill was for a dinner date that the two of them had had. Okay, but see how often we take the facts and we blow them out of proportion. And this is, again, because typically most of us have all these dragons inside, all these unresolved emotional issues from the past that are getting triggered and added into the current situation. Understand? They're being added into the current situation, and we're bringing all of the past anger and issues that we have into the current one because we've never dealt with the ones from the past. So they're all piling up into the current situation, which is, very, very unhealthy. All right. So you have to learn to stick to the facts. So, like, for example, this is a little thing, your spouse spent the evening watching TV instead of talking with you. So your interpretation and judgment, your spouse is selfish and doesn't care about you. An employee failed to take good care of a customer. The employee is lazy and doesn't care about customers. You haven't heard from a friend in a long time. They don't like you anymore. You discover your partner has a lot of calls from a member of the opposite sex. Your partner's unfaithful. They're obviously having an affair. See, these are the facts. This is an interpretation. You pile onto the facts. And you have to learn to separate those two. You have to disengage, look at what are the facts. What are the observable facts? So this is step one in nonviolent communication. And remove all of your interpretations and judgments. Okay? what's important to realize is all of your interpretations of other people's behavior come from what's inside of you. So you are always projecting your own crap on other people. So when you find yourself adding these interpretations and judgments, it's because of what's inside of you. It doesn't mean that that's inside of the other person. Okay. Now, second thing is you state your feelings. So, if I go back to this thing, okay, honey, all last evening you spent the time watching TV, and I felt lonely because and then this would be going to the next thing, statement of needs, because I really want your company. Okay, you failed to take care of this customer, and this makes me very concerned because I want our company to really take care of our customers. Okay. Call up the friend. I haven't heard you from a long time. I miss you. I would like to still have a relationship with you. I'm telling you, in all these cases, the 3 nonviolent communication steps: observation of fact, statement of feeling, then basically, asking to have your needs met. Okay. Honey, there's a lot of calls on here from somebody I don't know. I'm worried. I'm scared that you're having an affair. Okay. I need to know that you're faithful to me. I want you to be faithful to me. All right. Now, so you state your feelings. What I found when I read Marshall Rosenberg is that I was mixing my statements of feelings with judgments. And this was one of the reasons why I was having some problems with communicating. And so I just want to put out a thing. I just put a little poll. I said, if I say I feel betrayed, am I stating a feeling or am I stating a thought? You can go enter. I'm going to publish this right now, and you can enter your decision as to what. I hope this works, because this is the first time I've ever done a poll on this system. You should be able to basically say whether if I say I feel betrayed, I'm expressing a thought or a feeling. So I see at least one person found the thing. Okay. All right. And all right. All right. So still waiting, getting some people putting in their input, kind of going back and forth a little bit. Okay, I'm going to end it. So approximately 1/3 of you said that was a statement of a feeling, and the other 2/3 said that it was a thought. And the answer is, it is a thought. Now, the reason why is because I can tell you it's a thought is because there is no emotion called betrayed. None. That's an interpretation of the situation that is being added onto the feeling. And the reason I can say that unequivocally is this. Where do you feel betrayed? Where do you feel it? A feeling is always bodily centered. It's always an emotional response. So I don't know of any feeling called betrayal. There's a feeling of hurt, a feeling of sadness. There's a feeling of pain. So I might be feeling hurt, okay, over something that you did. But saying that I'm betrayed means that I'm interpreting that you deliberately did something to me to cause this hurt. And when I say that, I am actually making a judgment and projecting that judgment on the other person, and I'm attacking them. And then they're going to feel defensive because, well, I didn't betray you, blah, 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 blah. See, and you're missing the whole point. You're not betrayed. You're hurt. All right. Now, let's start with just another one. This is one that people often say, I feel like you threw me under the bus. Now, after what we said with the other one, This one should be pretty easy. Okay, what's your answer? Is that a thought or is that a feeling? Okay. Right. Okay. Did a little better on that because about 23% said feeling, 77% thought. But again, where do you feel thrown under the bus? What emotion is that? Again, you're saying that when you're saying, I feel like you did this to me, you're implying a judgment that the other person did something to create this feeling in you. You're not owning the feeling, you're blaming the feeling on the other person, which is a judgment. You're adding an interpretation and a judgment to your expression of feeling rather than just expressing feeling. And this again makes the other person defensive. I didn't throw you under the bus. What makes you think I threw you under the bus? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I would assume that what you're trying to describe is that I feel hurt. I feel really, really hurt. Okay. And again, you have to be able to identify the pain. And the key is, where do you feel it? Where in your body do you feel it? All right. Because an emotion is always a bodily sensation. And this is one of the things that I try to teach people in emotional healing is an emotion is a bodily sensation. Therefore, if you cannot identify where in the body you're feeling it and describe the feeling in your body, it is a thought in your head, not a feeling in your body. Now, the last one is actually easy. I am happy to see you. Are you expressing a thought or a feeling? Okay. Well, so far everybody says feeling, and that's correct because happiness is a feeling. Okay. And I'm saying that you being in, here, I'm, expressing that I'm feeling happy being in your presence. Now, see, remember, all of the things I've given, behind every negative feeling is an unmet need or desire. And so you have to communicate that. And I gave you examples of that. And you have to resist the temptation to make other people wrong. This is where emotional healing, it trains you that your feelings are not about anybody else. They're about you. And when you're including judgments and interpretations about the other person's intentions, the other person's behaviors, their whys, etc., you are projecting junk from inside of you onto them. You're going to make them defensive, and you're not going to be able to communicate effectively what's happening. You have to resist. You have to understand that your feelings are your own, and you have to love yourself enough, which, like I said, took a while for me to say, this is what I want. All right, this is what I want. But people are more likely to give you what they want if they can appreciate your feelings and you are not making them wrong in the process. And that's the key. That's where you find the balance. This takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you can do this. And we'll talk about boundaries. So this is just a little bit about some things of unmet needs and about how to identify your needs. Because when you're a kid, you can't say, I want this. I'd like you to do that. You just cry, and your parents have to figure it out. But now you're an adult, and you're responsible for your needs. I'm responsible for my needs because I'm responsible for myself. You're not responsible for me. My spouse isn't responsible for me. My children aren't responsible for me. My employees aren't responsible for me. My customers aren't responsible for me. I'm responsible for me. I am the only person who can be in control of me, and I am the only person I can be in control of. Boundaries. That's what we're going to get into more in detail next thing. So when you take responsibility for your own feelings, you're taking responsibility for your own needs. And the other person doesn't have to meet your needs. There is no law that says they have to alter their behavior in order to meet your needs. You could maybe find a way to take care of it on your own. You can ask them if they'll do it. If they say no, well, then that's their business. That's not yours. You can negotiate. I'll do this for you if you'll do that for me. Get your needs met that way. Or you can just turn over God. God, this is what I need. Help me find a way to get it. But you can't do that if you're saying, I shouldn't be angry. Why would I be angry? Blah, blah, blah. That's horrible that I'm angry. No, I'm angry because I feel hurt. And because I feel hurt, I want to change or stop the thing that I feel is hurting me and do something about it. And of course, then asking for what you want. And asking is asking. Most people don't ask. They're would you do this for me? Say, to their kids, would you do this? When the kid says no, then out come the threats, out come the judgments, out come the you horrible, blah, 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 which shows that it was never a request in the first place, because making a request implies that the other person has the right to say no. And if you don't feel the other person has a right to say no, you're not making a request. You're making a demand couched as a request. And demands always kill love. Okay? Because you're trying to control something that's not in your control. And again, this is about finding boundaries. Okay? What are you in control of? What are you not in control of? When you start taking control of your life and you let go of the need to control other people, you will find the balance point in anger. And like I said, it took me several years. So don't expect that just listening to the thing tonight that you're going to be able to do this. I mean, we help people with this, in emotional healing, but it's something you feel your way through. It's not something you reason your way through. It's something you feel your way through, because when you find the balance point, this is the key. When you find the balance point between respecting yourself and respecting other people, the balance point where you only want win-win, you don't want me to lose so that they can win. You don't want them to lose so I can win. You only want win-win. You will have peace. The peace of mind and the inner calm is the sign that you've found the sweet spot for your boundaries. And this is a little slide about the difference between demanding and asking. Okay. All right. And this is what, again, Marshall Rosenberg says, what we really want in revenge is not to make the other person suffer, but to get the other person to understand and acknowledge how much we suffered as a result of their actions. All right. And this is a quote by Confucius. He who takes offense where none is intended is a fool, and he who takes offense when offense is intended is a bigger fool. All right. And I got to see the Peace Pilgrim when I was in elementary school. She came by our school and gave a talk to us in second grade. But this, she said, before the tongue can speak, it must have lost the power to hurt and wound. All right. We will get into the whole practical thing of setting boundaries, exercises to release anger, whatever, next week. But right now, I just want to sum this up by basically making it really clear that there is nothing wrong with anger. There's nothing wrong with feeling angry. There is something wrong with using anger to try to control and manipulate other people. But there's nothing wrong with being angry and deciding what you're going to do to protect yourself. And it's not right to let other people abuse you, because then you're being an enabler and you're telling them that it's okay to be abusive. There's nothing wrong with being abusive. You got to stand up for it. So I'm going to tell you just two quick little examples to close on, and then I'm going to go to the questions and see if there's anything I can answer for today, and some of it I may be answering next week. But when my wife and my stepkids moved into the house last year. My stepkids there were some things that they were doing that just I didn't like, that actually made me pretty angry. One of them was getting tools and getting them out and leaving them all around the yard. And so I was feeling angry about it. So I did what I'm going to teach you to do next week. I set a personal boundary. I basically bought toolboxes and locks, and I locked up all the tools so they can't get to them. I defended myself. A boundary is just what you decide to do to protect yourself. It doesn't involve any need to make anybody else change. And when you find a good solution to something that's making you angry, it's you that will make the change, and nobody else needs to. And we'll talk about the process for doing that next week. The other thing I want to tell you is about, in one of our emotional healing classes, lady came and she was so soft-spoken and so timid and so little voice, and whatever. And I don't think she'll mind me telling the story. I won't mention her by name, but she went through the process. She did a bunch of inner healing with anger. We did the exercises. We'll talk next week about grounding and getting in touch with anger and everything. But she got into a situation where somebody was actually trying to actually do something violent and abusive to her. And she literally did the things that we did. She dropped down into her guts. She put forth such a powerful boundary. She scared them off. This meek little girl. It was amazing. She told this story at one of the classes she came to later. There is no reason to be a doormat, and there is no reason to be abusive. There is a sweet middle spot where you can go through life standing up for yourself, protecting yourself, being very bold about it, and not be abusive or mean to anybody else. It's totally possible. I swear it. You can find it if you do your emotional healing work, whatever. And the slides should be up on the class page. Accessing the school site. If you didn't log in the last time for the last class, the instructions are up with a little video on the YouTube channel. It explains how to, if you don't have a username and password to get into the school, then you can set one up, and you should be able to self-enroll. If you need some help, I got an email like for somebody who wanted to do this, and I can enroll you in the class and send you a username and password with instructions if you need help. Or you can call our office, 800-416-2887, and my son will help you. I haven't been able to set that person up because it happened right before I was leaving for Canada last week. So I've got to get to it this week. But I will help you. The slides are here, and so forth. Let's see. Any comments? Let's see. Okay. Let me just briefly see if I can pull up, just one second, okay, see if I can share my screen. And I'm gonna, now hopefully you can see this. This is the class page. It's modernherbal-medicine.com/LMS. And when you go here, you log in. You'll need your username and password. If you've never logged in before, you'll need to create a new account, which is over here on the right. If you've logged in before, you can log in, and just wait a second while it's logging in. I hope everybody can see this. And then you go here to the 2018 emotional healing program. I did that too fast. Over here on the side, it has a little bar, 2018 emotional healing program, right here. And you'll find these courses. This is the Spiritual Foundations of Emotional Healing, which is our first class. And now we're in the Tools for Healing. If you're not in the class, there's a little button that'll show up on the side somewhere over here that allows you to self-enroll in the class, and then you can enroll in the class, and then you'll be able to get, here are the handouts. Oh, I didn't get the handouts up today. I'm sorry. I meant to get them up last week. I didn't. I'll get the handouts up when I post the recordings. So the handouts will be up here for the class, and you'll be able to see them. Okay, turn screen sharing off so it doesn't go to infinity. Yeah, and we'll take care of it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We went a little bit over time today, but very important topic, a very, very important topic, because I find very, very, very few people have ever gotten to the point where they really have mastered the emotion of anger, where they really learned how to find the balance, where they stand up for themselves, but they don't abuse other people. Most people fall off the wagon one way or the other. They either let other people use them, they act like a doormat, and then they build up resentment and anger and hatred and blah, blah, blah. And then maybe sometimes they fly into a rage, or they're angry, controlling, and abusive, and blah, blah, blah. And they don't take guff from anybody, and they're very lacking in empathy and compassion and understanding for other people. Most people go one way or the other. Very few people find the middle ground that I'm going to talk about. And there will be next week even more tools about helping you find the middle ground that are actually very, very practical things you can do to start finding out, put this into practice in your life. Okay, so I'll look forward to sharing that with you next week. For now, good night.